You're seen very clearly globally as the father of cross-selling, the father of making the customer the center of a Main Street bank. Just give us a gist of how that thinking evolved in you, and how much work was involved in creating that within Wells Fargo, which as an institution is also seen as a leader in terms of cross-selling. I think 7 products per customer for retail, and the infrastructure that you need to put in place, and the thinking of the people, for example. What was involved in creating this, and do you think that you have a lead in that respect, which makes it difficult for other institutions to follow?
Well, what's interesting about this is we're credited with the cross-selling being a revenue-generating machine, but this was really started going back to risk. If you look, at least in my opinion, what causes banks failures or any other financial institution failures is concentration of risk. Even if you do a good job of underwriting, but if all your business is in, let's say, commercial real estate, and macroeconomic forces cause the commercial real estate market to collapse, you're going to have a big problem, even though you did a pretty good job of underwriting it. So my view of how you manage risk in a financial institution is to diversify the risk. Never be too big in anything, because macroeconomic forces can cause things to happen that's really not your fault in many ways. And so what that led me to believe is you do not want to be a narrow bank. You know, this makes commercial loans and takes deposits and so on. You want to be a financial services company. So you're in the mortgage business. You're in a commercial lending business. You do leasing. You get a lot of fee income. You do credit cards, debit cards. You do all of those things so that if one of those sectors has a problem, you will still do okay because the rest of the sectors are doing well. But the more I got involved with that diversification, we discovered that there's many other benefits. And one of the most important is the fact that that the average customer, both commercial and consumer, buys about 14 financial products. Right. In the past, from a variety of about 5 or 6 companies, because nobody offered the full suite of products. Right. And because we were diversifying, we were starting to provide all a suite of products to these customers. And if you think about it, that the cost of selling an additional product to an existing customer the incremental cost is very, very low compared to the selling that same product to a new customer. You know, you don't have to advertise it. You don't have to go through an account opening process. The customer's probably already in your store, right. So you can just sell them that other product. And it turns out that the cost of selling an existing product selling a product to an existing customer is only about 10% of selling that same product to a new customer. So it's a 90% cost versus a 10% cost. And if you do that, then you can reward the customer for doing more business because you have a nice margin that you can share with the customer. Right. And so, everybody wins. And then furthermore, you find out that the more products you sell a customer, the more loyal they are. They stay with you longer. And when you have customers who are gaining, are able to purchase a bundle of products that in aggregate are cheaper than buying it from 5 separate competitors, makes common sense, and they stay with you longer, you're going to have a very successful company.
Well, which retailer thinks the way you do? And, which retailer do you look at to get your inspiration in terms of this product per customer?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What does Walmart not sell?
When you walk into a Walmart, and what you said that you cannot walk out with.
And what is one of the lowest margin businesses in corporate America?
Retailing.
Well, but what part of retailing is the lowest margin?
Discount retailing?
No, groceries.
Groceries, right.
So why did Walmart enter the lowest margin industry in the world and now dominates grocery business? Do you think the margins of Walmart's grocery business is better than Safeway's? The answer is no. So why did they do it? The reason is people go into a grocery store 5 times more often than they go into a general merchandise store. And so when they added groceries to their general merchandise store, the sales of the general merchandise went up 27%. So that's a form of cross-selling. Think of Home Depot. So before you had to go to a paint, you want to do a room, you had to go to a paint store, you had to go to a plumbing store. Things didn't fit, and you had to get sheetrock somewhere else. You had to go to a lumber yard. They just took all these various products that were being sold by someone else, put it all together, not only make it convenient, but then someone in that store was an expert to say, here's how these things work better. And that's what our people do. Say, should you have a long-term CD given your risk profile, or should you have a mutual fund?
Right.
Or should you have an annuity? You couldn't get this advice from all the separate providers, because if I was only selling CDs, I wasn't going to tell you that mutual funds are better for you, right?
Right.
So you could only have confidence that you were getting advice if the provider had all these various products and was selecting from all the products that they had what was best for you. So this was in the customer's best interest.
Right.
And
so
this is why all this seemed to me was almost common sense. And I wasn't a banker. I came from retail.
Right.
And from General Mills and from marketing. So I think I had the advantage of
having seen it from that perspective.
Of starting with the customer, not starting with, I've been doing checking accounts all my life, so that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
So that's the front end of the business. The back end is the product itself. A Walmart sources its products from the lowest, source and so on. How does a financial institution look at the origination of products? There's the option of manufacturing it internally. It's an option of being a supermarket.
Right.
So what's the Wells Fargo approach?
Well, let me ask you this. Are the products that Walmart sells any different from the products that Target sells or Safeway or whatever?
A mutual fund is a mutual fund is a mutual fund.
I would like to convince our customers that our checking account is a better checking account than Bank of America's. But the truth of the matter, they're commodity products.
Okay.
Just like Walmart is.
Okay.
So the differentiation is not in the product. The differentiation is how you distribute commodity products. So when you look at the skill of Walmart, its skill is basic logistics, right?
Right.
Of taking these commodity products and being able to sell more of them per square feet than others, making sure they get into the stores and so on. It's the same way with us. Is how can we take these commodity products and help the customer to decide which one of those are in their best interest and bundle them in a way that is both less expensive, because you're taking some of the cost of the logistics away because you're putting it all under one roof, but you're giving more value to the customer because you're giving them exactly the products they need. But then also it's one statement. They can do it all online. They don't get 12 statements coming every month that someone's paying postage on. So it's more convenient, less cost, and a better satisfying their needs better. What is business? I mean, if you can do all those three things, you can be very successful, right?
Is there something that Main Street banks like Wells Fargo understands about the customer and being customer-centric, which is very different from, say, what a Merrill Lynch, which is a brokerage, understands about customer and being customer-centric, or a insurance company idea of being customer-centric?
Well, I would say it this way. Everyone admires our cross-selling. Okay? So I've had many CEOs who come and talk about cross-selling, whatever, and they go back and they write a memo to all their staff and say, I want you to cross-sell tomorrow. That's not how it works. The bad news is this is hard to do. It sounds easy. So let's go back to the Walmart example. Does anyone not understand Walmart's strategy?
Okay.
So why doesn't someone duplicate it?
It's too hard.
It's hard. So the best strategy that you can have is a strategy that is a superior business model that is hard to do. A superior business model that anyone could copy the next day is going to become a commodity return, 2 weeks later, right? So you don't want a superior business model that's easy. You want a superior business model that's hard. And so to really do this strategy right, you have to change the culture of your company. You have to figure out, we have, 25, 30 products. No one person can be an expert in all of those. So you got to figure out a way to bring the expert of a particular product to the customer. We call it partnering. You have to have the technology that tracks what the customer has with you today and what they don't have. Many banks don't even have that information that's at the sales counter.
Right.
And so it's about 100 things, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 100. There's no one silver bullet. There's 100 things that you have to do to change your company if you really want to do cross-selling and be customer-focused. Many companies, when they start down this road, say, this is going to cost me hundreds of millions in new technology. It's going to take years. I'm going to have to change my culture. It is not, and all that cost is up front before you see the benefit. I am not going to go through that process. I do pretty well, selling stocks and bonds. It's got me where I did today. And what they don't realize, however, is that because of these economic advantages, you can give a better deal to customers, and because they'll be loyal, over time, this cross-seller is going to take business away from them. And they're going to wind up one of these days, and it's kind of happened. There's really no independent investment banks anymore, right? They either have gone bankrupt or they've been bought by commercial banks, where you're starting to see this bundling.
Who owns the customer?
But some of these commercial banks have bought a lot of different companies, but they never have integrated it. So they're basically a conglomerate, and they say go cross-sell again, but none of their systems support it. They haven't changed the culture of the people, because it is all still a people business, and they haven't incented people to do the cross-selling. You have to inspect what you expect, and they don't get that. And so that's why, just like Walmart, everyone knows their strategy, but no one can compete because they're so far ahead of them in implementing their strategy. I think that's why it's been very difficult for our competitors to implement ours, because we started a long time ago, and we built our systems and our culture appropriately, and it's very hard for them to make the investments necessary to compete.